Currently, in the Atlanta and Marietta housing market, we have a severe shortage of homes available for buyers to buy. And because of that, if you are in the market to buy a home, you may be finding that every time you put an offer on a house, you are competing with one, two, sometimes dozens of other buyers who also love the same house that you do. So the question is, how do you get your offer accepted by the seller? How do you get your offer to stand out? So in today's video, we're going to digest and dive into the contingency parts of the contract and what you should or should not be considering when making your offer. So let's get started. Multiple offers are becoming the rule rather than the exception right now in the Atlanta housing market. And if you don't have a solid strategy, you could be striking out time and time again. In the last 12 months, I've listed and sold 21 properties, and 16 of those 21 properties got a sales price at or above the list price. And so I am seeing in all price ranges multiple offers coming in on our listings. And with that perspective, I can see the contracts that we receive that are done poorly and the ones that really do stand out. And just the other day, I dropped a video about the things that you can do in terms of the price you offer, earnest money, closing date, and things like that. So make sure you check the link below, because this part of the video is just going to be about the contingencies and whether or not you should add those to the offer. And if you do take them off, what are the risks to you? So before I get started, let me just preface it by saying that your situation is going to be different than everybody else's situation. So if you have any questions for me, you can either leave a comment down below or click on the email, or even better yet, I've put a link to my calendar and just schedule a quick free call with me. There are 4 primary contingencies in a Georgia contract: inspection or due diligence contingency, financing contingency, appraisal contingency, home sale contingency. We're going to talk about all of these, and then at the very end, I'm going to share with you the number one mistake that I think buyers make when they are deciding to move forward to buy a house. So stay tuned for that. Our Georgia contracts have a stipulation that allows the buyer to do any type of inspections they want to do. And during that period of time, they can terminate the contract for any reason at all and get their earnest money back. And in the past few years, we would see it's called a due diligence period anywhere from 7 to 14 days was pretty typical. But now with all these multiple offers, buyers are saying, you know what? We won't do any inspections. We have zero due diligence. And if that's the route you want to take, just know that you're buying that house as is, where is, and all of its faults. And if you did get into the contract and you changed your mind, you would lose your earnest money. So keeping in mind, like when you walk through the house, am I willing to take that risk? And if you're not willing to take the risk, but you still want to make your offer stand out or be competitive, there are some other things you could do. You could say the property is subject to due diligence, but you're purchasing it as is, which means you have the right to do some inspections, but you're telling the seller that I'm only going to terminate if there's so much wrong on the inspection report that I don't want to move forward with the contract. And then the other option is to have a shorter number of days in your due diligence period. So instead of 7 to 14, maybe you do 3 to 5. And we can most times get our inspector out within a day or two. So you should be fine to be able to get the property inspected within that time frame. If you're making an offer and you have the cash to buy the house, cash is king when it comes to contracts. But not everybody has a bunch of money stashed under their mattress or in their checking account. And if that's you and you need financing, what you need to consider is adding a financing contingency. So a financing contingency says that if during a specified period of days, if you can't get approved for your loan, you get fired or something happens to your financial position that keeps you from being able to buy the property, you could get your earnest money back. And that's typically what we would see in contracts, and we would see financing contingencies anywhere from like 21 to 30 days. But with all this competition, a lot of people are competing with cash offers and they're dropping their financing contingency. And so there's risk in that, because if you haven't started your loan process, you might not even know if you're qualified to buy a loan at that sales price. So what I encourage you to do, if you want to go to the route of not having a financing contingency and making your offer stand out stronger, is do your homework way ahead of the time that you're going to make an offer. Meet with a reputable lender and then get them to approve you all the way through so that you're conditionally approved, subject to knowing the address for the property. So they've verified employment, they've run all the credit checks, they've gotten all your bank statements, they've drawn blood, and they've technically almost asked for your firstborn, whatever it may be. You have done all of that legwork ahead of time. So your offer, even though it's not cash, it's almost as good as cash. And the other thing I want to tell you about financing, and this, you would not believe how many offers we rejected when we would get many, many offers on a property because we had never heard of the lender. The lender didn't return our call, because as a listing agent, I will call the lender to see how qualified their buyer is or how far along in the process they are before I let my seller accept that offer. So make sure you're working with a lender that has a good reputation in our industry and returns calls, and even goes one step further. Our current lender right now, he will call the listing agent on our behalf and let them know, hey, I'm working with this buyer, they're solid, they're good employment, all of those things. In most cases, a lender is going to require that the property appraises for the sales price, which is why in the past we have put into the contract an appraisal contingency, which says if it doesn't appraise for the sales price, you have a right as a buyer to renegotiate the price with the seller. And if you can't come to an agreement on either you paying some to make up the difference or the seller reducing the price, you would get your earnest money back. So that's how we used to do it. But today, because we have so many cash offers, and also because so many offers these days are being made at the sales price or above it, sometimes tens of thousands, I've even heard hundreds of thousands of dollars over the list price in some luxury cases. And if that happens, the seller, from a seller's perspective, they may be saying, hey, I thought the house was worth $500,000, but if you want to pay me $550,000, that's awesome. I'll take your money, but don't put the onus on me to prove that the house is worth $550,000. You're the one who wants to pay $50,000 over what I'm asking. And so that's why sellers are saying, hey, we will take your offer, but you will have to make up the gap if it doesn't appraise. Typically, is if it doesn't appraise for the list price. So let's say, for example, you agree to make up the difference. And in this hypothetical example, we'll have a $500,000 listing and you're offering $550,000. So what you'll need to do to make your offer stand out, because you're not going to be the only one who takes the appraisal contingency off, but to make your offer better than all of the other ones, you need to provide them with a letter or a bank statement that shows that you have the cash, that $50,000 gap, to pay the difference if it doesn't appraise. And you also have to have the cash for your down payment and your closing costs, which in the state of Georgia are about 3%. So add all that up. That's what you're going to have to show them, cash that you have. So this is a lot, right? There's a lot to consider here. So I've made it a little bit easier on you by creating just kind of a checklist for when you're writing an offer, what you should consider. And if you'd like a copy of that checklist, I'll give it to you for free. Just click on the link below to grab one of those. Okay, so now the last contingency is a home sale contingency. And that says, typically we would add that to a contract if you had to sell your house, take the money from that sale to buy your next house. And honestly, a lot of people have to do that. But with these market conditions the way they are, a lot of buyers are having to say no home sale contingency. And so what that means, if your house does not sell by the closing date, then you would not be able to close and you would be in breach of the contract and you would lose your earnest money. So just know, if you remove your home sale contingency, that you could lose whatever earnest money you put down. And you have to decide if you're willing to take that risk or not. A lot of that is going to depend on how quickly you think you can get your home sold. So make sure you're working with an experienced agent who can do the research on your home and give you some level of confidence as to whether or not it'll sell quickly. So now that you know the ins and outs of dropping contingencies, and if you've watched the last video, how you can price your offer to make it stand out, all of this is for naught if you are not working with an agent who knows how to write it good in a contract, knows how to communicate with the listing agent, and has a good reputation in our local industry. So do your homework, because I can tell you right now, when we get 20 or 30 offers, if we get an offer from an agent that's not written on the correct forms, doesn't have the correct documents, the agent never let me know that she was sending the contract and it just got stuck in my spam. I mean, there are so many things that happen where buyers are really put at a disadvantage because they haven't chosen a good agent. And I know a few good agents if you want some help. If that's the case, please click on the link below, send me an email, or give me a call. We'd be happy to help you. So now that you're armed with the information you need to make a great decision and present a good offer, choose the best things that work for you. And if you do
that, we cannot lose.
Hey, wait, don't leave yet. You haven't watched this video where I'm going to share with you the other things that you can do to make a really strong, solid offer.